Jason had always considered himself lucky when it came to relationships, or at least he used to. He met Emily at a friend's birthday party almost 2 years ago, and from the start, things had felt effortless. She was charming, funny, and had a way of making him feel like he mattered more than anyone else in the room. Their friends approved to everyone in their circle seemed to adore her, but there was always that nagging thought in the back of his mind, subtle enough to ignore, about her flirtatious nature. Jason brushed it off. He had no reason not to trust her, not until he started noticing small cracks in their seemingly perfect relationship. It began with the little things. Emily would disappear for hours, without explanation, sometimes texting in a hushed tone when she thought Jason wasn't looking. He didn't snoop. He never wanted to feel like that. But the intuition that something was off was gnawing at him, growing sharper with every passing day. He remembered the night when they hosted a game night for their friend group. Everyone was laughing, playing charades, drinks flowing, and yet Jason felt the unease crawling under his skin. Emily had a way of smiling at people, leaning in just a little too close, and that night, her laugh had lingered on one person a little longer than it should have. He didn't say anything at the time, afraid he was imagining things, but it planted a seed of doubt that refused to die. Then came the weekend getaway. Jason had organized a trip for the group to a lakeside cabin. It was supposed to be fun, a chance to relax, reconnect with friends, and enjoy the outdoors. At first, it was perfect, hiking trails, campfires, and laughter echoing across the water. But by the second night, the subtle tension became unbearable. Jason noticed Emily was quieter, more distracted, sneaking away to make calls or step out for private conversations. He chalked it up to nerves or maybe a need for space. But when he finally confronted her about it, she waved it off with a casual smile, claiming it was just group drama and nothing to worry about. Her eyes, though, flickered briefly, a flash of something he couldn't place. And it stayed with him. On the last night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Jason stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments from the trip in his head. His mind went back to the night of the barbecue at Mark's apartment, when he had walked past the living room and caught Emily brushing her hand against someone's arm with an intensity that made his stomach twist. He had been too stunned to confront her then, thinking perhaps it was innocent, a joke, or a misread moment. But combined with her recent behavior, the memory felt like a puzzle piece slipping into place. He wanted to believe it was nothing, but his gut screamed otherwise. The following week was a blur of anxiety and unease. Jason tried to focus on work, on normal life, but every notification from Emily's phone made his heart race. Every glance at her seemed loaded with hidden meaning. Then came the messages. At first, they were small missed calls, vague texts from friends he didn't recognize, but it didn't click until a chance encounter with Sarah, one of their mutual friends, brought everything crashing down. Sarah had been nervous, hesitant, almost guilty when she spoke, and Jason immediately sensed the weight of what she was about to reveal. Words stumbled out, half concealed, leaving Jason frozen, heart pounding in disbelief. Emily had been seeing someone from their friend group. The shock was paralyzing. His mind raced through every dinner, every movie night, every casual hangout, trying to guess, to reconcile the idea that someone he had trusted completely had betrayed him so intimately. The problem was obvious and terrifying at the same time. It could be anyone. Mark, the easygoing guy who was always joking around. Tom, Emily's quiet admirer who had a crush no one knew about. Even Sam, the one Jason least suspected because they had never shown any hint of inappropriate interest. Jason's world tilted on its axis, trust shredded to pieces. He felt betrayed, humiliated, and enraged all at once, yet he knew that confronting Emily without proof would only lead to lies, more deceit, and endless arguments. He needed evidence, something undeniable. The thought consumed him night and day. Every laugh, every glance, every casual touch between Emily and their friends became a potential clue, a breadcrumb trail leading him closer to the truth. By the end of the week, Jason realized that unraveling this tangled web wasn't just about catching Emily, it was about preserving his own sanity, reclaiming control over a situation that had been spiraling into chaos. He started documenting everything, taking notes in his phone, piecing together timelines, observing patterns. Every moment became a potential revelation. His friends, once a source of comfort, now felt like characters in a suspenseful thriller he couldn't escape. And deep down, Jason understood that once he uncovered the truth, nothing would ever be the same. Not their relationship, not their friend group, not even his own sense of self. The stage was set. Jason had decided he would confront this head-on, but he didn't know when or how. The The pieces were falling into place, and all that remained was to discover the identity of the person Emily had crossed the line with, the one who had invaded their circle and shattered the trust Jason had taken for granted. Every interaction from that point on would carry weight. Every smile could be hiding betrayal. And as he lay awake that night, scrolling through old conversations and trying to decipher subtle clues, one terrifying thought haunted him more than anything else. What if it was someone he liked, someone he trusted, someone he called a friend? Jason's days became a careful balance of observing and pretending, like walking on a tightrope over a pit of betrayal he could not yet see clearly. He started attending every group event, laughing when expected, nodding when others spoke, while quietly analyzing interactions. Every touch, every glance, every little inside joke became a potential clue, and he began replaying past moments with terrifying clarity. He noticed how Emily would linger near certain people longer than necessary, how her laughter would occasionally falter when he approached, and most disturbingly, how some of the friends in their circle now seemed to unconsciously shield her from his attention. The realization gnawed at him. This wasn't just Emily's betrayal. It felt like a coordinated dance, subtle but deliberate, that had been going on behind his back. One evening, the group organized a casual dinner at Tom's apartment. Jason arrived early, ostensibly to help with setup, but in reality to observe. Emily was already there, chatting animatedly with Kara, who had just joined their circle a few months earlier. Kara's presence immediately set off alarms in Jason's mind. He remembered fleetingly the night she had jokingly brushed her hand across Emily's shoulder at Mark's birthday, how Jason had laughed it off at the time. Now, seeing them together, something in his gut twisted. He positioned himself strategically, sitting close enough to overhear, far enough to remain unnoticed, and watched as Emily laughed, leaning slightly toward Kara in a way that was intimate without being overt. Jason felt the familiar churn of anger, fear, and disbelief. The night wore on, and subtle patterns emerged. Every time Jason approached with a comment or a question, their eyes flicked toward each other, an almost imperceptible acknowledgement that he noticed too late. He began cataloging these moments mentally, shared glances that lasted too long, casual touches that carried more weight than friendship, inside jokes that excluded him. It was like watching a story unfold in slow motion, each frame a revelation, each interaction a puzzle piece that fit into a pattern he could no longer ignore. By the time dinner ended, Jason knew something had to be done, but the identity of Emily's secret partner remained frustratingly elusive. Determined to find proof, he began manipulating situations subtly. He suggested group outings that would force certain people together, observing how Emily interacted with them. He noticed a shift in behavior around Mark. The easy camaraderie he had always had with Emily now carried an edge of secrecy, a closeness that had never existed before. Then came the breakthrough. A text notification glimmered on Emily's phone across the room. Jason caught a glimpse of the sender's name, Kara, before she casually hid the screen. His pulse spiked. Kara, the person he least expected, the newest member of their circle, the one he had welcomed without suspicion, was the one who had crossed lines he didn't even know existed. The revelation hit him like a physical blow, and yet Jason had to act cautiously. Confronting Emily directly would lead to lies. Confronting Kara without proof could backfire. He needed undeniable evidence, a moment that could not be denied, and he began orchestrating it quietly. He noticed their subtle communication, texting under the table during group game nights, sudden breaks to answer calls, fleeting touches that lingered too long. It was all there, and with patience, he could capture it in a way that left no room for excuses. Meanwhile, Jason felt the sting of betrayal more deeply than he anticipated, not just from Emily, but from the friend group he had trusted implicitly. Every laugh and hug now seemed tainted, every casual interaction a potential mask hiding deceit. He realized that his sense of safety, of belonging, had been built on illusions. Even small moments of warmth, the comforting presence of friends, the camaraderie he once took for granted now felt fragile, like glass waiting to shatter. But with the betrayal clear, Jason also felt a growing sense of purpose. This wasn't just about uncovering who had betrayed him, it was about reclaiming control, about seeing the truth and surviving it without losing himself. The next week, he watched and waited, documenting every interaction, cross-referencing conversations, piecing together timestamps and locations, building an irrefutable picture. Kara's presence with Emily was subtle but consistent, moments that could be mistaken as friendship but, under scrutiny, revealed the truth. The final moment came unexpectedly during a group movie night. Jason had placed himself strategically, phone discreetly recording, capturing a brief but unmistakable exchange, a touch, a shared glance, and a whispered word that confirmed everything. His heart raced. The person he had least suspected, the one he had welcomed into their circle, was the one who had been sharing Emily's betrayal all along. He finally knew, and the stage was set for confrontation. The question was no longer who, but how and when he would reclaim the truth from the two people who had shattered his trust in the most intimate way imaginable. Jason's mind raced with the knowledge he had unearthed. Kara and Emily, the pair he had trusted most recently, were entwined in a secret that had been unfolding under his very nose. The realization brought a storm of emotions: anger, heartbreak, and disbelief, but Jason knew that acting impulsively would only play into their hands. He needed a plan, a way to confront the betrayal with undeniable proof while maintaining control over the situation. Every moment now was a balancing act, a dangerous game of observation and deception. He began attending every hangout, every casual meetup, pretending everything was normal while quietly analyzing every micro-expression, every tone, every casual touch. The more he watched, the more the picture sharpened, revealing subtle patterns he had once overlooked: a shared glance across the room, an inside joke that made no sense to others, the way Emily would brush her hand against Kara's in moments no one else would notice. Jason started compiling evidence, using his phone to take notes discreetly, snapping small photos when possible, recording audio during group calls under the guise of casual conversation. Each tiny piece added to the story he had suspected but feared to confront. He replayed old memories with newfound clarity: the birthday party when Emily had lingered near Kara, the group dinner when he noticed their eyes meet in a silent, knowing way, the hike when Emily mysteriously left the trail for a few minutes. Everything fed into a puzzle that was horrifyingly clear. His girlfriend, the woman he had loved and trusted, was cheating with someone he had welcomed into his life as a friend. The depth of the betrayal made his chest tighten, but it also strengthened his resolve. He wasn't going to be blindsided anymore. The opportunity to gather the final piece came during a weekend gathering at Mark's apartment. The group had decided on a casual game night, laughter and snacks filling the room, everyone settling into their usual routines. Jason positioned himself strategically, phone in hand, pretending to scroll through messages while observing every movement. Emily and Kara were too close, too familiar, sharing whispered words and lingering touches under the table. Jason's pulse raced. He had enough to confront them if he needed, but he realized that timing was everything. The exposure had to be perfect, not just for him, but for the impact it would have on both the cheaters and the friend group that had unknowingly shielded their secret. He waited, letting them grow comfortable, letting their actions become bolder, until he captured the moment, a whispered confession, a secret laugh shared between them that could no longer be denied. Jason's mind flashed back to the nights of doubt, the moments he had questioned his sanity, the subtle signs he had ignored. He realized that betrayal wasn't just a single act, it was a series of choices, repeated in secrecy, calculated to maintain appearances while crossing boundaries he hadn't imagined could be violated. His trust had been systematically dismantled, layer by layer, leaving him standing in a room that suddenly felt foreign, where friends seemed like actors in a play written without his knowledge. Yet, amid the shock and pain, Jason felt a sense of clarity. The truth was now in his hands, and he could finally decide how to respond. As the night wound down, Jason excused himself to the kitchen under the pretense of grabbing a drink. He pulled out his phone, reviewing the evidence one last time, ensuring every message, every photo, every recording was clear and indisputable. He replayed the final recording, listening to their whispers, hearing the betrayal in its rawest form. A plan formed in his mind, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. He would confront Emily first, in a way that left no room for denial. Then Kara. The confrontation had to be precise, controlled, and revealing, not just for his own closure, but to expose the full extent of deception that had infiltrated his closest circle. Returning to the living room, Jason felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on him. He sat quietly, pretending to watch the game, while every instinct screamed for him to act. Emily laughed at a joke Kara made, leaning closer than friendship allowed, and Jason felt the final thread of patience snap. The time had come. He stood, voice steady but low, and addressed Emily. Her smile faltered, a flicker of panic crossing her face as she sensed the storm she had been blind to. Jason held up his phone, the screen glowing with messages, photos, and audio that confirmed every suspicion. Silence fell across the room, the friends around them shifting uncomfortably, sensing the gravity of the moment. Jason's eyes met Emily's, and in that instant, he knew nothing would ever be the same. The truth had been revealed, and the consequences would ripple through their friend group in ways no one could have predicted. The room fell into a heavy silence as Jason stood there, phone in hand, the undeniable proof of Emily and Kara's betrayal glowing on the screen. Emily's eyes widened, the confident mask she had worn so effortlessly crumbling into shock and fear. Kara's face paled, her usual casual demeanor replaced with the faintest hint of guilt, though she tried to hide it. Their friends, sensing something serious had erupted, froze mid-conversation, glances darting nervously between Jason and the two women. Jason's heart pounded, but his voice remained calm, controlled, a stark contrast to the chaos that suddenly surrounded him. Every accusation he had silently nurtured over weeks now poured out in measured, deliberate statements, recounting the moments he had observed, the messages he had found, the patterns that could no longer be dismissed. Emily tried to interrupt, to justify, to dismiss, but Jason didn't allow it. He laid out everything logically, fact by fact, leaving no room for denial. Kara, realizing the weight of the moment, attempted to deflect, claiming innocence or misinterpretation, but Jason had prepared for this. He played the recordings, showed the texts, and subtly highlighted the interactions that had gone unnoticed by others. The room felt tense, charged, as each revelation landed like a thunderclap. Friends whispered among themselves, a mix of disbelief, shock, and betrayal rippling through the group. Some had suspected, some hadn't, but everyone now faced the undeniable truth. The dynamic that had once felt solid, safe, familiar, was shattered. The confrontation was brutal but necessary. Jason watched as Emily's defenses cracked completely, her confident facade replaced by raw emotion, denial, guilt, and finally, the quiet acknowledgement of the truth. Kara, too, faltered, realizing her casual attitude had led to a moment that could not be reversed. Jason's sense of control sharpened with each reaction. He had waited patiently, compiled proof meticulously, and now wielded it with precision. He wasn't just exposing them. He was reclaiming his own narrative, his dignity, the respect he deserved after months of manipulation and deceit. Each friend in the room had to confront the reality that their circle had harbored secrets, that trust had been betrayed in the most intimate way possible. The fallout began immediately. Some friends took sides instinctively, others retreated into silence, grappling with the shock of seeing someone they had considered trustworthy revealed in a new, darker light. Jason observed everything carefully, understanding that the impact went far beyond just Emily and Kara. It had touched the core of the group, their shared history, the trust that had been assumed uncheckable. Emily's attempts at apology felt hollow. Kara's explanations rang false. Jason realized that reconciliation was unlikely, and perhaps not even desirable. The people who had caused this chaos had fractured the circle irreparably, and the consequences would ripple through friendships, social interactions, and memories that could never be restored to their original innocence. In the days that followed, Jason navigated the aftermath with cautious strategy. He limited contact, refused unnecessary explanations, and observed the subtle shifts in behavior as the group adapted to the revelations. He noticed which friends reached out to him privately, offering quiet support, and which ones hesitated, unsure of how to reconcile loyalty with honesty. Emily and Kara's presence, once taken for granted, became toxic, reminders of betrayal in the smallest interactions. Jason realized that moving forward required detachment, a clear understanding of who in his life could be trusted and who had crossed the boundaries that should never have been tested. He strengthened his own position, rebuilding a sense of security from the ground up, knowing that trust, once broken, was not easily repaired. Through the emotional turmoil, Jason's perspective sharpened. He had survived deceit, manipulation, and betrayal at the hands of those he cared for most. He learned to observe more carefully, to trust instincts over appearances, and to value honesty above all else. The confrontation had been painful, exposing not only Emily and Kara's betrayal but also revealing subtle truths about the dynamics of friendship, loyalty, and human behavior. Jason recognized that some friendships could not withstand the weight of hidden actions, while others would emerge stronger, bonded by shared clarity and truth. And as he finally allowed himself to breathe, he understood that the story wasn't just about cheating, it was about resilience, perception, and reclaiming control in the face of betrayal that cut closer than anyone could have imagined. The days following the confrontation were tense, almost surreal. Jason had reclaimed control of the narrative, but the emotional aftermath was far from over. Emily and Kara avoided him entirely, their casual interactions replaced by awkward glances and forced politeness when other friends were around. Some of the group distanced themselves, unsure how to navigate the fractured circle, while others quietly aligned with Jason, offering support without needing to be asked. He had learned quickly that trust, once broken, didn't heal overnight, and that actions had consequences extending far beyond the immediate betrayal. Every conversation now carried a weight, a subtle tension that reminded him the boundaries had been crossed, and nothing would ever be the same. Jason began rebuilding his life around the truth. He focused on friendships that had proven genuine, reevaluating relationships that had once seemed secure. He spent less energy on the drama Emily and Kara had created, choosing instead to cultivate stability and clarity. Surprisingly, some friendships that had seemed trivial before gained new significance. Those who had quietly supported him, those who had refused to condone deception, became anchors. He realized that betrayal often clarifies character, revealing who would stand beside you and who would falter when the foundations shift. Emily's charm, once magnetic, now felt hollow. Kara's wit, once entertaining, now felt manipulative. The facade had fallen, and Jason saw clearly the people behind it. Then came a revelation Jason hadn't anticipated. While reviewing old messages to ensure he had fully documented the betrayal, he noticed a subtle pattern he had overlooked. Someone else had been facilitating secret meetings and passing along information. His pulse quickened. It wasn't just Emily and Kara, someone else in the friend group had known, someone whose loyalty had been assumed. The realization was chilling, yet it gave Jason an even greater understanding of the dynamics around him. He didn't act immediately, choosing instead to observe and gather more details. When he finally confronted the third person, the truth emerged quietly but unmistakably. A friend he had trusted implicitly had kept secrets, afraid of conflict or perhaps complicit in small ways. The circle was more fractured than he had imagined, and the betrayal had layers beyond his initial suspicion. Despite the additional revelations, Jason felt a strange sense of liberation. The truth, though painful, had cleared the fog. He no longer felt haunted by uncertainty, no longer twisted by doubt. Each confrontation, each piece of evidence, had reaffirmed his instincts, validated his observations, and ultimately strengthened his sense of self. He had navigated deception with patience and precision, preserving his integrity while exposing dishonesty. The betrayal of those he had cared about most had left scars, but it had also provided clarity. He now knew where boundaries existed, where trust could be placed, and where caution was necessary. He understood that relationships were fragile, but awareness and observation could prevent further damage. Months later, Jason looked back on the ordeal with a mixture of anger, relief, and insight. The friend group had shifted. Some relationships ended entirely, some grew stronger under the weight of honesty, and some remained cautiously neutral, forever altered by the experience. Emily and Kara faded into the background of his life, their presence now a reminder of how betrayal can hide in plain sight, even among those closest to you. Jason carried the lessons with him, applying vigilance and discernment in friendships and relationships alike, never again allowing charm or familiarity to obscure reality. He understood that betrayal is a mirror, reflecting not just the actions of others, but also your own capacity to perceive and respond. And while the wound of trust broken would always leave a mark, Jason had emerged resilient, aware, and ready to navigate life with eyes wide open, knowing that some betrayals reveal more about the betrayer than the betrayed, and that the truth, once uncovered, has the power to liberate even amidst pain.